Everybody, in this video, I just want to walk you through a few of the basics as far as not how to create parts, but just some of the things you see on the screen. So first of all, we have on the left-hand side called the data panel. And it takes up a considerable amount of space whenever you have it open, but it's the way that you can go find things like what you're working in, which project folder you're working in. So right now I'm in the demos folder. Show me all the parts that are within there. If I have subfolders, I can click and add one here. I can change some of the things like how they're sorted or viewed. I can go add people and share files with people. It will list me as the owner and it'll show me as the person that created the part. So that's really important just to understand. You just can't share parts with other people and they get the credit for it. Okay, it's your part. You created it. So they're going to have to do their own work. Okay, keep that in mind. But I can go through and I can do lots of things with this. When I don't want it though, I'm just going to come up here to this grid and I'm going to click on it. It's going to hide the data panel. So now I'm working full screen. It's a little bit easier to see, a little bit more workspace, right? Up along the top, we have what's called the ribbon. Okay, so there are a lot of ribbons up here, and the ribbon will depend on what we're working within. So for instance, right now I'm building a model, but if I was to go through and build like a piece of sheet metal, if I was going to render something to make it more realistic, if I was going to create an animation, if I was going to create some simulations, do drawing files, if I'm going to create cams, all of these things have their own ribbon menu that you'll see will show up here. Okay, some of the things whenever I click inside of each panel, this is called a panel, I click down on this and you'll notice that there are different methods or different commands that are available for me depending on what menu I'm in. So for instance, when I'm in sketch mode, which is for two-dimensional things, I can come down here and draw arcs. I can do two-dimensional fillets. I can do offsets of features. There are all sorts of options. I can go through and I can create new components. I can extrude 2D surfaces. I can create coils. That's pretty cool. I can do thread for like a nut or a bolt, all sorts of options. I can also go and modify shapes. So you're going to use a lot of these things. You're going to have to monkey around and play with them. But each of these menus has a bunch of options that you want to dig through and you'll just want to become more comfortable with. When you work within Fusion 360, you'll also notice there's even a Make tab where you can actually send stuff that you've made out and get quotes from people for 3D printing. Okay. Now, if we want to get into 3D printing, that's something we can have a personal discussion in class. It does cost money for that material, and we happen to have a 3D printer that's fairly expensive. I'll tell you that. But I'm not averse to printing things for you guys if you're not going nuts. Okay. Maybe just like a pay for what you create kind of thing. Okay. There's all sorts of tools here, though. In other words, up in the ribbon, and with each individual panel has its own drop-down menu. On the left-hand side, we have what's called the browser. Now, if you ever get rid of that, that's a bad deal. Okay, we can delete, we can show or hide it a little bit like doing this, but I would recommend that you always leave it open. First of all, it tells me what I'm working in. Document settings, it'll tell me that my units are inches, and I can double-click on this at any given time. I think there we go. I can click on this little icon, and I can change the unit type if I want to and work in different units. I'm going to stay in inches. Most of the stuff we're going to do in this class is in inches. Okay. I can go down here and I can name my top, front, right home views. I can also use the Viewcube up here, just like we did with Inventor. So I can switch around. I can right click. I can set things as this is, I want this to be my home view. I can set this to be my front view or my top view, all sorts of options to help align things. Okay. I can also show the origin. So I can say, you know what, where is the XZ axis? What orientation is this in? And now if I show this, I can see that that's down on the bottom, okay, of this ball. I can show this folder. Notice the light bulb makes things visible or invisible. I can show this, and it'll show all of the axes there, or I can hide them all. I can show the different bodies that I've created. Look at all these different bodies here. So I can go through and I can, we hide these. What you'll notice then is this. This is called its own body. The L has its own body. The T has its own body. The W has its own body. And the P has its own body. And you can go through and you can rename things at any given time if you want to, just by right-clicking on it and, I'll see it here. Maybe I slow double-click on it. Okay, single click, and I can say, this is the P, right? So if you want to name parts, you can and make them a little bit easier to find. I also have all the various sketches that I've created, and I have construction menus. So there's a plane that I created in order to create the lettering on the front. Okay. Most interestingly, though, I think, is the fact that I can come down here and we have a timeline. So it'll show me the order that I created things. I can come down here and say the first thing I did is I created this sphere using the primitive tool. And then I created a work plane. I drew on that work plane the letters PLTW, and then I extruded those letters onto and wrapped them to the face of the sphere. So that's pretty nice. If at any point in time I want to roll back changes and say, what did it look like here? I can do that. I can say, here it is when it's just the sphere. Here it is when it's just the sphere with the letters. Here it is after I did the extrusion. So the timeline is a great tool in order to figure out when things happen. Now, we haven't even gotten into this menu here. I'll go ahead and do it now. It's 5.5 minutes, going a little long. We have the lookout tool, we have an orbit tool, we can grab stuff. You can also hold down, just like we did on our other computers, we could hold down shift and hold down the wheel of our mouse. Okay, that's pretty nice for rotating objects. We can zoom in and we can zoom out, just like Inventor. I can do this without the shift. I can hold down the middle of the mouse. That drags things around. I can zoom in and zoom out. I can even do things like change the visual style. I can make this wireframe if I wanted to. Okay, I can make this a wireframe with hidden edges. And it'll actually show me like I can see the little hidden edges that are actually behind, the solid modeling of the surface. I can come up here. I can change mesh display. I can change the environment if I want to. I can do some special effects, things like, I want to show the ground plane. I also want to show an object shadow. Maybe that's pretty cool. It's not really doing it. Hard to see. You can see a little bit of a reflection down here. You can go and you can snap to grid. I would not say you should do that. We can do multiple views at the same time. That's pretty advanced stuff. There are a lot of things to learn about on Autodesk Fusion 360, but with some monkeying around, we're going to figure this out together. Okay, so in the next video, I'll show you how to get started with your first part.